Hello, Ed. Welcome. There's so much interesting in the beginning of SEL. Today we thought we'd take a dive a little deeper into the experiences, practices, and events that shaped the company we are today. The topic, building a business, spans a couple of podcast episodes, so let's get started.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. First question. The job description of a professor is a lot different than an entrepreneur. How did you go from a professor to entrepreneur? How did you learn what I assume were new skills like selling, or did this just come naturally to you?
Well, I guess there is something in common. There are common factors. One thing we've come to realize is selling is teaching. And Dave, if you can teach me how my life will be better with some new technology or invention, you're really selling me. So, of course, as a professor, you're teaching and trying to instill excitement and knowledge among students. Well, it's very much like selling. Another aspect of it is research. That when doing research, you're trying to find out if new ideas will actually work or are valid. And in the entrepreneurial part of it, what you add on is, which is highly deeply motivating for me, is actually seeing people begin to use what ideas the research had uncovered or produced. So it was more of a fulfillment. And in a way, if you just do a research and write a technical paper, it's kind of like, oh, wonder if anybody's ever going to read it or use it or benefit from it. And now we get to do it all. We get to, we talk about our verbs: invent, design, manufacture, sell, support, teach. And they kind of fit together maybe more than one might think at the beginning.
Yeah, I had never thought about the how related perhaps being a professor is to being an entrepreneur, in that you have to be able to connect with people like you either on the business side, or if you were in a classroom teaching kids, there's certainly the research component of coming up with invention and going through that particular process. But this sort of leads into the next question. With all of those things that were natural with the professor, or that married between being a professor and an entrepreneur, what were the biggest challenges then? Because I'm sure there wasn't an all-encompassing, the Venn diagram overlap between professor and entrepreneur was probably not complete.
Well, one of the big difference is, as a professor, you're paid a salary to educate students and do some research. And as an entrepreneur, you're trying to use research and invention to make products, sell them, and be able to pay for everything in the process. And one of the hugest differences is, in two words, cash flow. You start that whole process with a little bit of money, and well, you better have something to offer and sell that people really want, or it's game over pretty quick. So I think that part of it really intrigued me, and as you know, we ended up with our cash flow 1, 2, and 3 ideas early on that I had come up with. That is, how long can we keep paying everybody and doing the things we're doing if we never get another order, if we can't ship we can only ship what's on the books, or we can't ship at all. And we would look at it different ways like that to get a good idea how long the money was going to last. And well, cash is king. And I eventually learned what accruals accounting was a little bit, but certainly the cash flow was a big difference between going to the university to teach classes and do some research versus starting up a company.
Sure. And, the simple thing you've taught us before is, as you pointed out, was if I never sold another product today, how long could the company keep the doors open, et cetera. Seems like a pretty common sense approach to running a business. Did you ever take any classes or any professional courses that taught you how to run a business, or was it rather a common sense approach, and if it worked, great. If it didn't, you pivoted and tried something else?
I never took a business class or marketing class. In fact, sometimes I'm curious what exactly they do teach. And on the other hand, I think it is. It's a practical approach. And of course, we have so many people today. But even in the beginning, when it was just a couple of people, it was everything we were doing was new. We were doing for the first time, and it was fun to uncover. Okay, how are we going to do this? Sit down, think about it, decide, try it, and it wasn't as if we were going to go ask people for $1 bazillion to invest in us, and then we're going to open the doors and then burn through capital, and if we needed more, we'd go for a second round and so forth. No, this was pay as you go, pulling yourself up at the bootstraps, and it worked because we needed to be learning from our customers, and our customers needed to be learning from us, and we needed to be learning together and growing together, and that was the approach that I chose to take.
That must have been both exciting and scary all at the same time. Did you ever have any, I don't know, sleepless nights then in the early days?
Oh yeah, every now and then, you stop and think that these protective relays are sampling the power system multiple times a cycle, and every few milliseconds or less, they're making a decision whether or not to trip a breaker that might shut out the lights of the city. And you start to think, okay, they're making those decisions over and over and over again. All it would take is one or two wrong decisions, and people are not going to trust this technology. So, that'll make you sleepless. That'll make you check everything over and over again to make sure everything is just right, and have a tremendous appreciation for detail. I like to say the angels are in the detail, not the devils. The angels are in there.
I like that saying. I've had the opportunity to ask you this question a few times over the years, but I think folks listening to this will really appreciate it. You took your PhD thesis and turned it into a product over a handful of years, in your basement. And you finally come up with a product, and you create the company in 1982. So the question then is, how long did it take you to convince a customer to buy that first SEL-21? And what was the path or the process for going about that?
Well, I was getting to know the industry because of some consulting work, and then when I was developing the SEL-21, I did promote it with the free coverage of the bingo, so-called bingo cards, the reader response cards that used to be in the trade magazines. And sent those out, and I sent letters out based on a address list from the directory of the electric utilities. Pretty much everybody got a letter at the if they had more than I forgot what it was. If they had more than 10 miles of 69 kV line, I think was my threshold to pick something to go through the book, and type all the addresses and names into a database, which was a early thing to do with a 8-bit computer, and had a printer, a daisy wheel printer, to print out all the letters and sign them. So that's how people began to know about it. And when the guys at Otter Tail took some interest, I went out there.
Otter Tail Power?
Otter Tail Power Company in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and went out there and met with Rod Scheel and other folks, and gave them a demonstration. And it was kind of an interesting event because that first demonstration didn't work. They had it all set up and had a double test set there, the ones that looked like a big guitar amp or something. And I said, okay, now we'll make an 8 of ground fault. And I turned the phase A current on, and nothing happened. And of course, everybody's eyebrows go up and they fold their arms and lean forward. And I'm thinking, now what? So I said, okay, well, let's figure out what happened, and we'll go to the terminal here, which was a little TI 700, what they call a silent 700. There was a thermal printing terminal, and I said, let's just do a trigger an event and look at the information. So we printed it out, tore off the paper, and plotted out the phasers for the 3 voltages and the 1 current, and I showed how there was a problem with, I think, the phase C voltage was way off in phase. And I said, there's the problem. And they said, well, really? And one of the techs in the room said, yeah, I'll go get my Dranitz phase meter out of my truck. So he ran downstairs and came back upstairs to the conference room there with his Dranitz meter and put it on a double test set. And sure enough, the phase was way off in the phase shifter. Phase shifter in the double set. Then the guys went, wow, the relay tested the test set. And I think that is serendipity of having been given a test set with a bad phase shifter in it that sold the first 3 relays.
That's a great story, and I've seen you in pressure situations before, and you always give this appearance of calm and collected. During that demo at Otter Tail Power, and the relay didn't trip when it was supposed to. I'm sure on the outside you were pretty calm and collected. What was it like on the inside, though? Your first live demo at a customer site, and it didn't work like you thought it was gonna.
Well, there's a number of ways I could think to describe it, but
suitable
I'm just trying
for the
to
air.
find a real suitable one. That it was an internally very, very tense moment. And then I got a hold of myself and said, okay, this is science and engineering. Let's figure it out.
But I gotta imagine when you saw the event report and you could see exactly what happened. The being proud of the SEL 21 and its capabilities and be able to demonstrate to the customer must have been. I can't imagine the adulation or the happiness that caused too.
Well,
that's a roller coaster.
I don't remember any feeling of proud, but I do pride. I remember a feeling of satisfaction, like, oh, good, yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah,
this does work. It very satisfying, kind of fulfilling feelings.
All right, next question is: you've come up with this great new product. There is nothing like it on the market. It's brand new. Nobody's ever seen it before. Probably nobody was ever asking Ed for you to create a microprocessor-based relay. So you come out with it. How do you decide what to sell it for? How do you set the price? Or how did you set the price?
Well, I looked at what it could do, Dave, and I compared it to how many electromechanical relays it would take to do the same protective functions, knowing full well that we were also doing the event reporting and the fault locating and metering and whatnot. And then I said, shoot, if we're able to do as good of a job as the electromechanical relays at half that price or less, and then have these other capabilities of self-testing and event reporting and whatnot, then the thing is going to be really, really attractive. So that's how I came up with the $6,500. I used to say it was 1/8 of the size, 1/10 of the weight, and 1/3 of the price. So it must have been 1/3 of the price. So maybe it would have taken $20,000 of electromechanical relays to do what the $6,500 instrument did. And I liked that 1/8 of the size, 1/10 of the weight, and 1/3 of the price. It was a tremendous value proposition.
I wonder every once in a while if you had hired a marketing firm at that time and said, here's what I've come up with, this is what it's competing with, what they would have come back with you. Because right off the top of my head, I would, as you pointed out, is it's doing all of the capabilities of that entire panel plus so much more, right, with the fault locating, which probably pays for itself with the very first time it tells you where the fault is in the line. So you should have been able to charge $30,000 for your relay, or certainly $20,000 for your relay, and you didn't. And I got to believe you thought that worked out pretty well for the company, and more importantly for the customers to use this new technology.
Right. So I think if we had hired a consultant or gone to a business professor, they probably would have said something like this: price to what the market will bear. Of course, there was no market, so what does that mean? And my philosophy on the pricing was, how much do I need to charge for the product so that I can make enough money to keep going doing the research and development and the other activities of the company. So I would kind of figure that out or estimate it and take it from that approach. And hopefully then what would be included with the product was a tremendous value proposition. And that's what people saw, a tremendous value proposition. And I've always said that, the invention, the creativity is something that's good to share. You shouldn't take it all unto yourself. At least that's not how I feel about it. And I think a lot of business people would say, gee, when it comes to shareholders, you owe them the most money you can possibly get them. Therefore, don't leave any money on the table and price to what the market will bear. And, I don't believe in that. I just don't believe in it, Dave. And I still don't. That we have to find a price that is right, all things considered, with social responsibility, with creativity, with invention, making money, paying people well, and growing and having money to reinvest and so that we can keep inventing the future. And that's still generally the way we price. We do not, we look at the market to make sure that we're not above it with some crazy idea. But, so we need that awareness. But over the years, I believe that SEL has really set reset the cost of protecting electric power systems with this philosophy.
Yeah, and I've been in many meetings where you continually stress what is the value to the customer. Let's not get into the minutia of how much market share could we capture or what is the real value to the customer, because I think we all agree I don't mind paying $10 for a particular product if I feel I'm getting $100 worth of value out of it.
Precisely. And when you invent something new, you're growing the market. So, for example, the RPM thing we're developing. What market is there for it, and what share of that market do we have? I don't know what the market is for it. I do know it's something valuable. Nobody else has anything like it, so nobody has any share in this new market. So when you invent the market, we're going to have 100% share until somebody else comes along and says, gee, that's a cool idea what SEL did. Let's copy it and see if they in order to try to get some market share from that idea. Well, that's what competition's about, and why we have to always keep inventing to stay out ahead.
And for the folks listening to this, the RPN is our redundant power module. It's an idea Ed came up with. How do we combine different power sources within a substation to provide a reliable power source to the end device, whether it's a relay or a computer inside the substation? And hey, could you comment just a little bit about, we've sat in meetings before and maybe somebody will ask a question. It's like, well, how much market share do you think you can capture if we come out with this particular product? And invariably you come up with a response to the question about market share and some of your thoughts on market share versus perhaps something else.
Well, if you go in a grocery store and go down the aisle of laundry detergent, you see all the different brands and all the different smells and all the different packaging, but it's soap. Well, it's detergent. And yeah, I suppose that there's some differences in it. But guys making detergent are fighting over market share, and they oftentimes express it in terms of shelf space. So that's kind of one class of business. But what we're doing is when we're inventing new things, as I mentioned earlier, you have all the shelf space to yourself. So you're really growing the pie instead of trying to fight for a share of the pie. So if a particular market for, say, protective relays is 100% today, and you come up and invent something that's better, cheaper, faster, simpler, and you double the market, so now the market's 200%, and if you had 10% of the market share before, and now you've got whatever it's going to be, 55% of the market. So don't chase the percentage of the market. When you chase the creativity and invention, then all those other nice things just come along for free.
Yeah, I always love when you remind us of that. Let's not argue about fighting for how big a slice we can get. Let's grow the pie to make it even bigger. Or I even like the analogy, forget pie, let's make a cake. It's totally different. Everybody's going to love it. We don't even worry about pies anymore. At what point in the company's history did you come up with the mission statement, making electric power safer, more reliable, and more economical? And why those three adjectives?
Well, pretty early on. I can't tell you what year that was, Dave, but pretty early on that I wanted to be able to say, what exactly is it we do? And of course, electric power is so important to us all, and it is. It can kill you. It's a source of energy, and so improving the safety of it is so important. We see that today with the risk of fire, and that the importance of safety is tantamount through the whole industry's history. And reliability, we all depend on it, and so that seemed really important. And then economical, that economy is at the core of the public service company, being able, as Edison and Insull stressed so much, is they wanted to provide affordable energy to anyone, no matter where they are, and they realized that electricity was a way to do it. So the safety, the reliability, and the economy, keeping those rates down, something that sometimes I wonder if we lose a little sight of, and maybe in all three of those dimensions. So I think it's, over the years, it's withstood the test of time, that if you want to pick represent the purpose of a represent the purpose of a company as a vector, the three components of safety, reliability, and economy are pretty darn good ones today, and probably will be for a long, long time.
That's great. I'm going to switch topics just a little bit, and I'd like to talk just a bit about culture. Every Friday we have our business lunch meeting where we get the company together and we talk about various topics, but we always start the meeting with new employee introduction, and it gives the opportunity to see the new face. And one of the questions we ask the new employee is, why did you join SEL? And invariably, at least 90% of the folks say, I joined SEL because of the culture. And I'm assuming when it was, the company was very small, and there's just a handful of employees, that you could teach a culture or set the example just by being there. People could observe the way that you conducted business. But the company is now 5,300 folks around the world. How do you continue to teach that culture? And did you have when you started the company a particular cultural theme that you wanted to start the company off with?
Well, I think in the very beginning, or from the very beginning, I wanted to have people join us who really wanted to be engaged. And really wanted people to join us and be engaged with the ideas of making electric power safer, more reliable, more economical, to really get it. And as you know, I started very early on making sure that every employee would do a tour of a substation so they would get an appreciation of where this equipment went and what it did and how serious it is to the safe, reliable, economical operation of electric power systems.
That's great. The next thing following along with that line of discussion is you wrote the Principles of Operation, I'm trying to remember, 1994-ish time frame. What drove you, or what was the reason for writing the Principles of Operation for SEL?
Well, I was thinking about what do we actually do as a business? What are the activities that we do, and why do we do them? And I thought just for fun I'd try to write them down. And I was traveling quite a bit those days and had some time, in airplanes and hotels to think about that. And that's really where the Principles of Operation came from. So I remember writing it all down and reading what I had written. I said, man, I don't know what good this is. It's all just obvious stuff. And I thought about, well, I don't know if it's obvious or not. Let's put it together. So we did put it together in a little book along with the values. And gosh, it's amazing how often people have come back to that and say, hey, we've gone back and read the Principles of Operation, and we get a lot out of it. So maybe it was obvious after I wrote it down, but it wouldn't have been obvious if I hadn't wrote it down, I guess. John Tomkowiak, who's the dean of the Washington State University's med school, he referred to our Principles of Operation as SEL's secret playbook, although we make no secret of it. But there it is. He held it up and called it our secret playbook. And he had read it, and it really resonated with him. So it just sort of evolved out of the idea of trying to answer the question, what is it that we actually do, and how do we do it, and why? Otherwise, if you're doing a function like, say, finance, what's it for? And I realized early on, just in thinking that through, is you really have two customers, yourself, that is the company, needing to understand if you're making money and so forth. And then the other one is the government. In other words, in order to properly calculate your taxes, as one example. So you start to think about the customers of the various activities of the business. Well, then that gives the various activities some real solid ground to stand on.
I remember the meeting with Dr. Tomkowiak, and at that time we had SEL Confidential on the SEL Principles of Operation, and I think it was at that time he said, take it off and let's make sure we share this broadly with our suppliers, with our customers, and now you can find it on our website. So if folks are listening to this, you can go and see SEL Principles of Operation. One of the
I think we had taken it off before John came to
had we?
see us. But you might be right.
Your
You
memory
can
is
fact check me later.
your memory is way better than mine is.
God, I hope not.
Oh my gosh, I know it is. Okay, one of the things that you hear in other businesses, you read in the Wall Street Journal, perhaps you see it on the evening news, is this concept of ethics and how does a company behave? And there's the idea of there's ethics, there's business ethics. What are your thoughts on the difference between perhaps ethics and business ethics?
Well, there can be no difference. So ethics equals business ethics. And if you it's a slippery slope to say that business ethics are some subset of ethics or that they're different. And in fact, when we looked for a book to teach ethics from in our company, we found a book that starts out with that at the very beginning as a premise that ethics and business ethics are the same. And the other thing I like about it is how the basis of ethics can be summarized in something so simple as the golden rule. And the author of that little book shows the golden rule as expressed in many different religions around the world to show, to make the point that we are all bound by this commonality of do unto others as you would have others do unto you, and how we express that in the various religions of the world. It's quite a binding component of humankind.
I think we said if I had to summarize SEL's principles of operation, you could probably do it by saying do business the way our mothers would want us to do, which I think is really it's very encompassing, maybe not all encompassing, but in the principle of operation, you've taught us that you have to have passion for what you do, and I think that's so important for delighting customers, for yourself, for enjoyment in coming to work every day. Was your passion that drove you in the early days to create the business? Does that still exist today? And do you feel that same level of excitement and passion now that you did perhaps in the starting of SEL?
Yes. It's very satisfying that we're serving a industry that is really a common factor in almost every human activity. And it's very, very satisfying about that. And I am passionate about the serious nature of it, and the value of it, and the importance of it. That all of those things drive some kind of passion. And there's other factors like the wonderful people in the electric power industry that share our passion. They realize they're part of something that's really big, important, and rather fundamental. Maybe it's up there close to agriculture and other very fundamental things in our society. I'm passionate about it. I think you can see it when we're working on the traveling wave technology or the RPM that we mentioned earlier, or cybersecurity. How much better, cheaper, faster, simpler that we can do things, how we can solve problems, how we can make lives easier for our customers, how we can keep the lights on better. It's quite motivating.
I can certainly affirm that you have a lot of passion. I think it goes along the lines of, what was Edison's quote about, I never worked a day in my life?
Yeah. I never worked a day in my life. It was all fun.
Yep.
Why not have fun? And what a blessing it is to, in our free society, to be able to find things that we like to do that are productive enough to support ourselves and raise families and contribute to our community while we're enjoying it. What a blessing.
You're absolutely right. Well, Ed, thanks very much for the conversation this morning, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Well, me too, Dave. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for stopping by Schweitzer Drive. Join us again as we learn about, explore, and celebrate electric power. For more information about the show, please visit selinc.com/Schweitzer Drive.